My dad got a new friend who keeps infantilizing me, and it's getting creepy. Years ago, my dad met Harold through mutual friends, and they hit it off. I was 18 and in college when I met him, and we never had a close relationship. However, he always seemed to think of himself as a family friend, and was extremely infantilizing and condescending towards me. Every time I saw him, I tried to tell myself it wasn't that bad, only for him to prove me wrong less than a minute later. Harold would disrespect my boundaries, say things like, "You're not 19, you're a baby," while I was talking to other people, and patronize me, my education or my hobbies whenever he had the chance. He always noticed that annoyed me, to which he'd playfully ask if I hated him. I always said no, but only for my father's sake. The final straw came the day Harold interrupted a barbecue to say, "I really like you, even though you're an impolite brat." I was 20 years old. I'd been quiet all day, working on a paper during the barbecue, but replied patiently and politely whenever anyone addressed me. And even if that hadn't been the case, I knew he didn't have the right to talk to me like that. After that, I started making an effort to avoid any events I knew he'd be attending. Yesterday was my father's girlfriend's birthday. They threw a small lunch party at my dad's apartment. I went there with my fiancé and our 6-month-old son. Harold was there. I hadn't seen him in months, but he still talked to me as if I was a dumb child. Never mind that I'm engaged, a mother, and 26 years old. I spent the whole party ignoring his helpful advice about me being too young to get married or be a mom. It helped that most of the other guests seemed to disagree with him. My baby spent most of the afternoon sleeping. There's a bassinet in my old room. He woke up hungry, so I went to breastfeed him and excused myself from the party for a while. I got back to jokes and comments, all from Harold, about how I was probably struggling if my son was managing to leech me away for so long. He went on to interrupt a conversation I was having with another of my dad's friends to question pretty much everything about my parenting. He doesn't even have custody of his daughter, by the way, and to make more comments about my age. I decided I couldn't take it anymore after he asked if I thought about giving my baby up for adoption. I got my son and told my fiancé we were leaving. We said goodbye to everyone except Harold. When we got to the door, Harold came to ask why we were leaving. I tried to make up an excuse, but he kept trying to make us stay. After a small back and forth, he jokingly asked if I hated him. And this time, I said, "Yes. I do. Can we go now?" He didn't say anything, and we left. On the way home, my fiancé said he was proud of me. My father called this morning to say the opposite, and we had a small fight, but ultimately decided to drop the subject. I'm sure this isn't over, but if it keeps going, it won't be because of me. This is far from my proudest moment, and a small part of me regrets it, but I'm done with that guy. Edit, Jesus Christ Superstar, that's a lot of comments. To answer some common questions. I don't think Harold is in love with me. Harold didn't tell me to give up my son, he asked if I thought of doing so when I got pregnant. It was still an awful question, especially since he interrupted a conversation I was having with someone else, my dad's girlfriend's pregnant friend, who was asking about my own pregnancy and delivery, to ask it. I don't like making a big deal out of things unless necessary. If I'm uncomfortable, I leave. If I don't like someone, I avoid them. It's usually less stressful. The fight between me and my father ended when I told him about the adoption comment. I don't think he gets that's not the only reason I left, but it was definitely what broke the camel's back. I really don't need my father to stop being friends with Harold. He's a grown man capable of making his own crappy decisions. I never told my dad I hated Harold because I never thought I had to like him in the first place. He's my father's friend, not mine. And I've been distancing myself from Harold since I was 20, meaning I haven't seen him much in the last 6 years. My fiancé was on the other side of the room and wasn't listening to Harold's comments. I filled him in when we got to the car. He's 100% on my side. Update 1. Hey, guys. I wasn't going to write an update, but I just got some free time and I figured I'd fill you in. I'll start by addressing the not very frequent assumption that Harold has feelings for me. I really don't think that's the case. His comments always came out as annoying and condescending, but never sexual. But I will say that your comments scared the shit out of me. And the fact that the general consensus was "fuck Harold" was weirdly heartwarming. I also want to add that, while I did regret what I said a little bit, I never doubted I'd done the right thing. I think most of my regret came from the fact that my 8 years of keeping the peace were over. It took some time for the relief to sink in. Truth be told, I've been wanting to do this since the barbecue incident, which was when I went from, "I don't like that guy," to, "I can't stand that guy." My father called Harold the day after I made my previous post. When confronted about the adoption comment, he tried to twist it as him being genuinely concerned about me being a mom so soon, and that he didn't think I knew what I was doing. He did apologize to my father. I don't buy any of that. The next day, my dad told me about the call. He said I should forgive Harold for what he thought was an honest misunderstanding. He also told me I should apologize too, since I'd overreacted by telling Harold I hated him for such a small reason. Many of Harold's past comments were made with my father close by. It often happened in the middle of conversations with other people, so he'd be too distracted to register them. He also wouldn't notice them most of the time. My dad doesn't pay enough attention to anything that doesn't either concern or anger him, and he'll most likely forget it until he gets angry at something else later anyway. He's like a meth head goldfish. We also have different definitions of what's offensive, so he'd never think they were a big deal. I told my father I wasn't exaggerating when I said I hated Harold, and that the adoption comment was far from being the only reason. I listed most of the condescending treatment and comments I could remember, including the ones from the party. He didn't remember any of them. I made it very clear that I'd hated Harold for years prior to the party, and that I had nothing to apologize for. I then stated that I'm no longer coming to any events Harold is invited to. My father doesn't need to stop being friends with him, or even stop inviting him to stuff, but he can no longer expect me to show up as well. I will ask him beforehand, and if he lies, I'll leave. My father called me dramatic, but I pointed out that I've been avoiding Harold for 6 years now and no one even noticed, so it clearly wasn't a problem. I've only seen him a handful of times since the barbecue incident, and only twice for more than a few minutes, the lunch party last week and another party back when I was pregnant. It clearly didn't ruin my father's life. I'm not obliged to like his friends any more than he is to like mine. There was some back and forth, but he agreed to my terms. We spoke yesterday about something else, and he mentioned Harold was upset. I ignored that. I'm not going NC with my father. Yes, I'm very well aware he's an asshole, and I came really close to cutting ties with him in the last few years, but I ultimately decided it wouldn't really fix anything. Maintaining my relationship with him has gotten a lot easier since I moved out, as we only see each other a couple times a month. He gets frustrated that I don't call or text much, but doesn't complain about it anymore. I don't see the point in going NC with someone who no longer has any say in how I live my life. I'd rather just take note of what my father did wrong when I was growing up and then make sure to raise my own kid differently. He's on thin ice, though, and has been for some time. He's not allowed to babysit, mostly because I don't trust him to spend more than an hour alone with a baby without falling asleep on the couch. I began pushing for him to start doing therapy back when I got pregnant, and he finally got started back in June. His behavior around me and my younger sister, who still lives between our very divorced parents, has improved a lot since, and I've made it clear to him that he won't be allowed near my son if he stops attending. This is the first time in my life my father has improved his behavior. It's hard to be hopeful, but I'm trying. And if I ever do go NC with my father, it won't be because of fudging Harold. So that's it. Overall, I'm glad I don't have to deceive anyone anymore. My relationship with my father is rocky, but I won't dwell on it. My main responsibilities are my son, my fiancé, and my job, and that's not changing anytime soon. And to those who mentioned Jesus Christ Superstar and Blue Oyster Cult in my last post, has anyone told you you're fucking awesome today? Because you are. Update 2. 1 year later. Hey, guys. Wow, I can't believe it's been over a year since I last posted about this. I planned on updating some time ago. These past few months, I've been caught up in raising a toddler, getting married. Yay! Working like crazy and rewatching Supernatural. Needless to say, I've been busy. Openly avoiding Harold has been working pretty well. My father has been respecting my boundaries. Whenever he invites me and my husband over for lunch or dinner, I ask who else will be there. If Harold's coming, he tells me. He hasn't lied so far, and doesn't usually insist when I tell him I'm not coming. Since my last post, I've only seen Harold once, at my dad's birthday party a few months ago. Yes, I knew he'd be there. My father promised he'd tell him not to talk to me. Also, some of my father's friends' kids, most of whom I used to babysit, would be there. I hadn't seen them in a while, and I love them more than I hate Harold. I ended up spending most of the party with my son and the kids. Harold didn't talk to me at all, so I guess my father was true to his word. My husband and I did catch him staring at us a couple times, but I decided to ignore it. I caught my husband staring back once, and the walking marshmallow I married actually managed to look threatening. I love this man. You know who did talk to me? Harold's girlfriend. Yes, he has one now. She interacted with me twice. First, she came over to coo over my son before making a comment about how he needed a haircut. I already hate you. Later, she approached me and said, "You're shy, aren't you?" I said no. She laughed and said,
"Yeah,
"You're shy." She said all that in the same tone one would use to talk to a 6-year-old. I managed to keep my expression schooled. Otherwise, I would have told her I'm not shy, I just chose to spend the whole party with the kids because they were better company than her and her annoying-ass boyfriend. So,
yeah,
based on both my interactions with her, Harold's girlfriend is insufferable. In other words, they're perfect for each other. I don't have much else to add. My father broke up with the woman he was dating last year.
long
Fucking story, and has a new girlfriend. She is not annoying or psychotic, and I actually really like her. They won't last a year. My relationship with my father is still not perfect, by the way, but it has improved. He's actually started apologizing to me a lot more often. I don't know whether it's the therapy or the fact that motherhood has apparently made me terrifying, but I'll take it. And I'll give credit where it's due, he's a very good grandfather. I'm also glad my father is respecting this Harold boundary. I very much don't want this man in my life. Honestly, I'm pretty satisfied right now. My little boy is thriving. Part of me really misses the baby times, but I grow prouder and prouder every day. Getting to know my kid has been fantastic. Update 3. 6 months later. So, guess who popped back into my life when I least expected it? That's right. Harold. Let me set the scene for you. Last week, I was at a grocery store, minding my own business, with my son in the shopping cart and my husband picking out snacks. He takes this very seriously. Life's been great, toddler chaos, married bliss, work stress, but you know, the usual. I was debating if we needed more diapers when, out of nowhere, I heard a voice that made my skin crawl. Wow, look at you. Already doing the mom thing, huh? Yup. Harold, standing there in the middle of the freaking produce aisle, staring at me like we were old pals who had just bumped into each other at a high school reunion. Spoiler alert, we are not old pals. It was like someone pressed fast forward on my anxiety. I felt my blood pressure skyrocket in real time. And before I could even process the "why the hell is this happening" part, he started with his usual nonsense. I have to say, I'm impressed. You've really grown up. The tone he used made it sound like I had graduated from some imaginary academy of how to be an adult, under his reluctant approval. I didn't know whether to laugh or scream. My husband, who was on the other side of the aisle stacking chips into the cart like they were bricks, glanced over and gave me that look like he was ready to come over, but waiting to see if I could handle it. I gave Harold a very forced smile, hoping he'd take the hint and move on, but of course, that's not his style. Nope, Harold saw this as an opportunity to dive in for some more of his signature patronizing. So, how's the little one doing? Still keeping you up at night? I bet it's tough for you at your age. He said it as if I was some teenage mom who had stumbled into parenthood by accident. That's when my husband stepped in. Bless him. He walked right up, put his arm around me, and gave Harold a grin that was way too friendly for the energy in the air. He's doing great, actually, my husband said. And so's his mom. Anything else we can help you with, Harold? Now, if you've ever seen a balloon slowly deflate, you'll understand the way Harold's face shifted. He didn't expect pushback. In fact, he looked like a deer caught in headlights, but then quickly regrouped, like he had planned to be an ass but forgot his script. He tried to make some awkward small talk, but I was done. I looked at my husband and said, "We should get going. The frozen stuff's going to melt." Code 4, get me out of here before I scream. We left Harold standing there, mid-sentence, talking to the back of our heads. And the entire drive home, my husband kept cracking jokes about Harold shopping for sympathy in the produce aisle. I couldn't stop laughing. But here's where things get really weird. A couple of days later, I get a call from my dad. Guess what? Harold told him about the run-in at the grocery store. According to Harold, he was just trying to be polite and friendly, but I snubbed him and made him feel uncomfortable. My dad said he was disappointed in me for being rude. Disappointed? In me? I nearly lost it. I told my dad exactly what happened, how Harold was still acting like I'm the family toddler and throwing his passive-aggressive nonsense at me. I made it clear that I have no time for Harold's crap, especially when I'm just trying to live my life. My dad got quiet. I think he realized how ridiculous it was to be taking Harold's side again. Then, my dad dropped a bombshell. Harold wants to make amends. Apparently, Harold's been reflecting on how he's treated me all these years, and let's be honest, that's a long list, and wants to sit down and clear the air. He wants to have a heart-to-heart. Honestly, I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my phone. The last thing I want is Harold getting all apologetic with me. I told my dad straight up, I don't need amends. I need Harold out of my life. But here's the kicker, my dad thinks I should give Harold a chance to apologize. He said I've been holding on to resentment and it's time to let it go. As if I'm the one who's been in the wrong all these years. The audacity. I told him, again, that I have no interest in talking to Harold, let alone giving him the satisfaction of thinking he's made things right. I'm not going to sit there and listen to his half-assed apology just so he can feel better about himself. So, now we're in this weird limbo. My dad keeps hinting that Harold's waiting for me to reach out. As if that's going to happen. Meanwhile, I'm out here living my life, keeping my son as far away from Harold as possible. Part of me wonders if this is all a ploy, Harold trying to weasel his way back into my dad's good graces through some redemption arc. Honestly, I don't care what his angle is. I'm done. And my dad needs to get the memo that this is not a two-way street. Harold can apologize to a brick wall for all I care. Update 4. It's been about a month since my last post, and I wasn't planning on writing again, but something happened. Something big. So here I am, ready to spill the last bit of tea. After the whole grocery store incident, I thought things would calm down. Harold would get the message, my dad would stop pushing me to make nice, and life would go back to normal. Boy, was I wrong. 2 weeks ago, my dad invited us over for a family dinner. He promised it would be low-key, just me, my husband, our son, and him. No Harold, he said. My dad sounded genuine, and honestly, I hadn't seen him in a while, so I thought, why not? We agreed to go. We show up, and everything seems fine. My dad's in a good mood, my son's running around with a juice box, and my husband is chatting with my dad about some boring home improvement project. I'm sitting there, enjoying a rare moment of peace when the doorbell rings. I should have known. In walks Harold, holding a bottle of wine and looking way too smug for someone who wasn't supposed to be there. He acts like this is all totally normal, like we're just one big happy family gathering for a nice evening. My dad, trying to avoid eye contact with me, says something about how he forgot to mention that Harold was stopping by.
Yeah.
Sure. Harold wastes no time. He comes over to me, all fake sincerity, and says, I'm really glad you came. We need to talk. The audacity. He pulls up a chair like he's about to give me a TED talk on why Harold deserves forgiveness. My blood is boiling, but I hold it together. My husband is sitting across the room, watching, looking like he's ready to step in if things go south. I've been thinking a lot, Harold starts, and I realize that maybe I've been a bit dismissive toward you in the past. Maybe. And, he continues, I know it's probably hurt you more than I intended. But I never meant to make you feel small. I care about you, and I think we've misunderstood each other. I almost laugh. Misunderstood? This man has spent years treating me like a clueless child, and now he wants to act like it was all just some big misunderstanding? I take a deep breath, ready to let him have it, but before I can even get a word out, he says the one thing that sends me over the edge. I think we can get past this, especially now that you're finally growing up. That's it. That's the line that breaks me. Years of biting my tongue, years of enduring his condescending crap for the sake of keeping the peace, all come crashing down. You think I'm finally growing up? I say, my voice ice cold. Harold, I've been a grown-up since I was 18. I've been through college, I've built a career, I've become a wife, and I'm raising a child. And you've done nothing but try to undermine me at every step. You think we can just get past this because you suddenly want to feel better about yourself? He opens his mouth to say something, but I'm not done.
Oh no.
Not this time. Do you even hear yourself? You don't respect me. You never have. You've infantilized me, belittled me, and I'm done with it. I don't care what you want, Harold. I'm not interested in your apology or whatever this is supposed to be. The only thing I want is for you to stay out of my life. The room goes dead silent. My dad is standing there, stunned, while Harold looks like he's just been slapped. For the first time, he has nothing to say. No snarky comeback, no patronizing quip. Just silence. My husband, bless him, stands up, walks over, and says, "I think it's time for us to go." He picks up our son, who's still blissfully unaware of the drama, and we head for the door. But, of course, Harold can't just let it go. As we're leaving, he says, "You know, I was just trying to help." That's when my husband, usually the calmest, most easygoing guy on the planet, turns around and says, "Harold, if you really wanted to help, you'd leave her alone." And with that, we walk out the door. As we're driving home, my phone starts blowing up with calls from my dad. I let them go to voicemail. The next day, he texts me, saying he's disappointed in how I handled things and that I didn't give Harold a chance. I don't even respond. I've had enough of this cycle. And then, the next bombshell, my sister calls to tell me that Harold is engaged to his girlfriend, the one who called me shy at the last party. Apparently, they're planning a big wedding, and my dad is already talking about how the whole family will be invited.
Yeah.
Not happening. There's no universe where I'm going to a wedding where Harold is front and center, expecting everyone to pretend like he's some reformed, decent guy. My husband and I agree, we're skipping this one. Hard pass. So, that's it. I'm done. I'm done pretending, I'm done being polite, and I'm definitely done letting Harold or my dad guilt me into forgiving someone who has never respected me. My dad and I are still talking, but there's a distance now. He knows where I stand, and if he tries to push Harold into my life again, I'm ready to cut ties if I have to.